This is the Bushnell Ion Elite GPS golf watch, and it's one of my favourite golf watches that I've used in a long time. With that said, it's not perfect and it does have a few very specific frustrating features about it, but if you're looking for a golf watch for under £200, then this is definitely worth considering. I've also included a link below to a video where I've compared 7 different golf watches, including this one, that all retail for under £200. So you should definitely check out that video after watching this one. In terms of the style and design of the watch, I've got to say that I really do quite like it. You've got a nice, bright, clear, colourful touchscreen display, and it's a good size as well. It's not too small compared to other watches in this price range. What you're also getting as well is this ceramic bezel on the outside, which has got all these little textured dots as well. Doesn't offer anything in terms of functionality. The watch has a single button on the side, which has got a bit of texture into it as well. And this button offers you the ability to go back really easily in your menus. It comes with this rubber or silicone watch strap, and again it's got a little bit of texturing on the outside and nice and smooth on the back. It's not the thickest, but it's thick enough. The straps do have a quick release button that's commonplace on a lot of watches here, and you can see that it's got a proprietary magnetic charger on the back. You just clip it on and plug it into USB on the other end. You've got 3 different watch faces to choose from. You've got this digital one here that I had it set on. You've got a more normal looking analog style watch face. And then you've got this one here, which actually says Bushnell Golf on the top of it. Personally, I'm not a fan of having Bushnell written on the front of my watch everywhere. And then that should take you back to the digital one as well. So not a huge amount of choices, but for me, I like the brightness of this watch. I think it looks plenty smart enough if I had to wear this watch off of the course as well as on. It's also got a sensor in this watch, so the screen will turn off when you kind of put your wrist down, and then when you raise your wrist back up, there you go, it turns on, and it's nice and snappy. There's not too much of a delay there as well. Swiping across, you can see here that you've got a little menu screen. So the main button there is play golf. Then you've got your settings, and you can see your previous scorecards as well. And it tells you the scores there, so you can track through and scroll through them if you want to. But the main feature of this one really is the golf functionality. Well, actually, it's the only feature. So if you were looking for a watch that also tracks running or walks or cycling or anything like that, this doesn't do it, I'm afraid. You're only getting the golf GPS. When you go into golf mode, then it searches for your course, and then once it's found it, it will give you a list of the courses that it's found, and you need to scroll through and select the one that you want. A slight frustration is that it does take an absolute age for the text to scroll across on the course. That was a little bit of a frustration for me because I've got a couple of different courses at my club and I needed to make sure that I was selecting the right one, so I had to wait for the little ticker to go across. Once you're set up, you can see that you've got this main home screen design. Now, initially I was a little bit kind of daunted with this because perhaps it wasn't the most intuitive to use right off of the bat. But actually, after using it for a couple of holes, I quickly got used to that home screen. And I've got to say, I now quite like the design because pretty much all the information you need is only one touch away. So you can see in the middle, you've got the distance to the front, the middle, and the back of the green. And that's core information that you'd want. And then on the outer edge, you've got 4 main places that you can click on the watch. Now you can see that the screen is flashing on this video. That's not what happens with the watch in real life. That's just because the screen refresh rate is clashing with the frame rate of my camera. So I'm afraid that that's why you're getting that flashing. In real world, this is nice and clear. In fact, it just looks like that. So you can see no flashing whatsoever. The button on the top left takes you to a full hole layout. Now that's a great feature to have in a watch in this price point. On a lot of watches, you just simply won't have a full hole layout. And you can see that you can use your finger to move and zoom in and select points on the course so you can get a distance to that yardage and then from that yardage to the green. Coming back to the main menu, if you click the top right, you can see that you've got the shape of the green. And again, you can click and you can tap and move the flag to a more specific position if you want it to. From the main screen on the bottom left, you've got the hazards. So you tap on that and it will give you a list of all of the hazards that it currently has recorded for the score. Now, frustratingly, it's only giving you the distances to the hazards, not to carry the hazards. Although you can always go into the map view and then have a look that way by tapping what it is to carry the hazard. The other slight frustration with the hazards view is just its layout. It's a rather complex list of just what could be considered random letters and numbers as you look at it. Now, of course, they're not random. They're indicating whether it's a bunker on the left or on the right, or whether it's water, or those kind of things. But it's just a little bit confusing on first look and you have to get used to what those shortened words mean. If you're finding this video helpful, hit that like button and make sure you subscribe to my channel so you can keep up to date with my latest golf tech reviews. On the bottom right hand side, you have your current score if you're tracking it on the watch, and if you press it, you can select the number of strokes that you took, the number of putts, and where you hit your tee shot if it's a par 4 or 5. Now, you don't have the ability to actually track specific distances of specific clubs with this watch, but again, for £200, I wouldn't entirely expect it to have that feature. From the home screen, you can also tap the bottom button and then you can change which hole you're on. You can see that that bottom button displays the hole that you're on and the par as well. And then if you want to track the distance of your last shot, then you can just swipe across from that main screen and then that will take you to the track distance screen as well. And then you can just walk to your ball and it will tell you how far you hit it. The watch as well does have the ability to factor in slope. You can see around the outside it has an orange ring. When that turns to a blue ring, then it is then factoring in slope on the GPS calculations. And you can see at the top of the screen as well, you can tell whether or not your phone is connected to Bluetooth, and you can see the battery life that you've got left. And in the middle, there's a little dot as well. Now that's if you've got any notifications from your phone. So with this watch, you can connect it to your smartphone and then it will give you notifications for text messages and phone calls. Now I really quite like that feature because I generally like to keep my phone in my bag, but I do like to know if my phone is ringing, so that's great. However, with that said, when you swipe down from it, it just gives you a highlight of what that notification is. You can't click in and read a full text message. I find the watch nice and snappy and sharp to use. I don't really have any issues with slowdown on this watch at all. And generally the screen is nice and bright, so I didn't have any issues not being able to see in the bright sun. If you want to increase the battery life on the watch, you can turn down the brightness. You can do that in the settings. That's nice and easy. But overall, I was impressed with the color and the pop and the textures on display on this watch. As someone who wears their watch on the left wrist, it does feel a little bit odd to have the button on the left hand side. It means that I have to use my thumb and stretch across the watch really to go back in the menus. Probably would have expected that to be on the right hand side instead. Maybe they're trying to stop you from accidentally pressing that button when you hinge at the wrist, so perhaps I can understand it. But then if you're a left-handed golfer and you wear your watch on your right hand, well, all of a sudden you've got that problem. So can't be that big of a problem, can it? Once you've finished your round, you can connect the watch to the Bushnell app on your smartphone and then transfer that data to the app via Bluetooth. And I've got to admit that the app is nice and pleasant to use as well. I didn't really have any issues. It's not particularly difficult to use and work out. The interface is nicely laid out. And then you can get your scores and a little bit of statistics data as well. You're not getting a huge amount of performance and statistics data on there because the information that you're tracking on the watch is pretty much limited to the number of putts and how accurate your tee shots are. But if you want some basic information and being able to keep a track of your scores and go back in and look at what you got on holes, then that's in the app. From the app, you can also then update the course information if Bushnell have got updated yardages and that kind of stuff. So it's pretty simple. You just go into course update, search for your course, and then it will upload it to the watch. Now, if you do notice that something is out of place and the yardages isn't quite right, or the watch isn't jumping over to the next hole, then you can inform Bushnell via the app as well, and hopefully they'll get to that pretty quickly. That being said, I did update them about some of the changes that needed to happen for my local course, and I haven't got an email back yet. And that was a good month or two ago, so I didn't get notified if they had made any changes or not. So overall, as you can tell, I'm a big fan of this watch, the features that it has and the tech that it provides for the money. But I did reference that it's not perfect. Now, I have already run through a couple of frustrations that I've had using the watch, but I did want to highlight a few others as well. My biggest gripe with this watch is that even though you can enter your scores and track your details on the watch, when you get to the green, it doesn't automatically prompt you to enter your score. When you walk to the next tee box, if you haven't pressed the button to enter your score, then it's just going to jump you onto the next hole. That's more of a software thing, I think, and hopefully Bushnell might be able to add it in a future firmware update, but I think it's really convenient when watches give you that little reminder and prompt to enter your score after you've finished a hole. I did notice a few little issues with some of the mapping elements as well on the watch. So for one hole, it was picking it up as a par 3, and yet I'd done the latest course update and it was still incorrectly showing it as a par 3 when it should have been a par 4. That's a little bit frustrating, but not necessarily the end of the world because you can still just enter your correct score on the watch. A little bit more of a concern was that on one of the holes, it wasn't picking up one of the bunkers in the hazard view. It was only showing there being one hazard. And that was despite the fact that when I go into the actual full hole layout view, I can see that there were 2 bunkers on the hole, but in the hazard view, it was only showing me 1. So again, that's a mapping issue that just needs to be corrected, hopefully over time, and that's something that Bushnell can do, hopefully pretty quickly. Entering the scores at the end of each hole can be a little bit fiddly, especially if you've got bigger fingers, because you have to scroll to change the scores and the number of putts. It isn't tapping plus or minus, but again, that's a pretty minor gripe. I mentioned already that the hazards only show you to the front, not the distances to carry, as some other watches do. And also that hazard screen is a little bit daunting with all those acronyms just written out in a list on the watch. It would have been much better if they could have just kind of used some images and then given you the yardages. They've got a nice coloured touchscreen display here, just seems a shame just to give you a static list of text for that screen. The watch doesn't have a big numbers mode on it either. That being said, it does have a pretty good clear display and the numbers are large enough for me and will be fine for most people, but it would have been nice if they could have put in a really specific big numbers mode for those that need it. Overall, I'm impressed with this watch. It has a really nice quality screen. It has a nice look and design of it as well. If you wanted to wear this off the course, then you shouldn't really have any too much problems with that. I think this looks absolutely fine. It's not the most beautiful watch in the world. Maybe for those who are, a fan of slightly nicer mechanical watches, this is going to be absolutely fine, but I'd much rather wear one of my proper watches off the course. So if you are thinking about buying this one, then check out any discount codes that I've got down in the description below, and make sure you check out my full comparison of the 7 watches that I bought for under £200 so you can see how the Bushnell Ion Elite stacks up against its competition.